Welcome to Capitol Catch-up, the podcast that brings you a clear, in-depth look at what's happening on Capitol Hill. I'm Victor.
And I'm Lainey. Today we're unpacking a full slate of recent legislation, a handful of high-profile nominations, a committee meeting, and highlights from the latest congressional records. Let's get started.
Let's begin with the Senate's legislative agenda. The first bill on the docket is Senate Bill 4297, the Keep Public Funds in Public Schools Act. The core idea is to prohibit the diversion of public education dollars to private schools, keeping the money where it's needed most, public classrooms. That could have a direct impact on families who rely on public schools for affordable education.
It's a response to the long-standing debate over school choice. By mandating that public funds stay in the public system, the bill aims to protect resources for teachers, facilities, and programs that serve the majority of students. If it passes, we could see steadier funding for things like after-school programs and special education services.
Next up is Senate Bill 71, a very practical measure that would require Amtrak to install baby-changing tables in the bathrooms of passenger rail cars. It's a small accommodation, but for parents traveling long distances, it could make a big difference in comfort and accessibility.
It's also an example of how Congress can address everyday needs through targeted legislation. The bill would likely be implemented through Amtrak's existing maintenance and refurbishment schedules, so the cost impact should be modest.
Moving to labor policy, Senate Bill 844 seeks to accelerate the time-to-contract process under the National Labor Relations Act. In plain language, it would streamline the steps a group of workers must take to become a recognized bargaining unit, shortening the period before a collective bargaining agreement can be negotiated.
That could be a boon for workers looking to organize quickly, especially in fast-moving industries. At the same time, employers may raise concerns about reduced time for due process considerations. The Senate will have to balance the desire for speed with protections for both sides.
The Senate is also honoring historic contributions with two Congressional Gold Medal bills. Senate Bill 567 would award the medal collectively to the 1st Rhode Island Regiment for its service in the Revolutionary War. Senate Bill 645 would recognize the volunteers and communities that supported the North Platte Canteen in Nebraska during World War II from 1941 to 1946.
Those medals are symbolic but powerful. They highlight the nation's gratitude for military service and civilian support during pivotal moments in our history. The bills move through the Senate and, if passed, would be sent to the House for concurrence before the President signs them into law.
Turning to agriculture and cybersecurity, Senate Bill 754 directs the Secretary of Agriculture to conduct periodic assessments of cyber threats to the agriculture and food critical infrastructure sector and to run an annual cross-sector simulation exercise for food-related emergencies. In today's digital age, protecting farms, processing plants, and distribution networks from cyber attacks is essential for food security.
The bill also calls for recommendations to improve resilience. If enacted, we could see new guidelines for farms to secure their networks and perhaps federal funding for cybersecurity upgrades in rural areas.
On the energy front, Senate Bill 1183 would amend the Internal Revenue Code to support upgrades at existing hydroelectric dams. The goal is to increase clean energy production, improve grid reliability, and enhance river ecosystems. Upgrading turbines and adding modern control systems can boost output without building new dams.
That aligns with broader climate goals. By improving existing infrastructure, the bill could generate more renewable electricity, lower emissions, and create jobs in engineering and construction.
For veterans, Senate Bill 1726 clarifies that the Department of Veterans Affairs' definition of medical services includes medically necessary automobile adaptations. That means veterans who need vehicle modifications for mobility can receive coverage under VA medical benefits.
It's a practical change that can improve independence for disabled veterans, allowing them to drive safely and maintain employment or community involvement.
The Senate is also tackling firearms modernization with Senate Bill 1283, which would update federal firearms laws to reflect advances in technology and less-than-lethal weapons. The bill aims to close gaps where new devices fall outside existing regulations.
That could affect everything from smart guns to stun guns, ensuring that law enforcement and public safety agencies have the tools they need while protecting constitutional rights.
Healthcare gets a boost with House Resolution 3419, which would reauthorize the telehealth network and telehealth resource centers grant programs. By extending funding, the bill supports remote medical services, especially in underserved areas.
Telehealth has become a mainstay since the pandemic, and continued support helps rural patients access specialists without long travel, reducing costs and improving outcomes.
Child protection is addressed in Senate Bill 1528, amending the National Child Protection Act of 1993. It would allow businesses and organizations that work with vulnerable populations to request background checks on contractors and licensed individuals who provide care.
That adds a layer of safety for children and other at-risk groups, ensuring that anyone entering a care setting has been vetted.
2 health-related bills focus on specific populations. House Resolution 2319, the Women and Lung Cancer Research and Preventative Services Act of 2025, aims to expand research funding and preventative screening for lung cancer among women. And House Resolution 2493, the Improving Care in Rural America Reauthorization Act of 2025, reauthorizes programs that bring specialty health services to rural communities.
Both bills address gaps in the current system, gender disparities in lung cancer outcomes, and the shortage of specialty care in rural hospitals.
Ethics and transparency come up with Senate Bill 1879, which would require members of Congress, their spouses, and dependent children to place certain assets into blind trusts. The idea is to reduce conflicts of interest by removing direct control over investments.
Blind trusts have been used before, but this bill would make the practice mandatory for a broader set of assets, potentially increasing public trust in legislative decisions.
Finally, on public health, Senate Bill 1929 would establish programs to reduce rates of sepsis, a life-threatening response to infection. The bill would fund early detection protocols, staff training, and public awareness campaigns.
Sepsis is a leading cause of hospital mortality, so targeted programs could save thousands of lives and reduce healthcare costs.
That covers the major bills. Let's shift to the nominations that are moving through the Senate.
First, Kevin Warsh of Florida has been nominated to serve as chairman of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, succeeding Jerome H. Powell, whose term is expiring. The Federal Reserve Chair sets monetary policy, influences interest rates, and guides the nation's response to inflation and employment trends.
Warsh also has a separate nomination to serve as a member of the Board of Governors for a 14-year term starting February 1, 2026, filling the seat vacated by Stephen Moran. Holding both positions would give him a significant voice in shaping monetary policy for years to come.
Christopher Phelan of Minnesota is nominated to be chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, the group that provides the president with economic analysis and policy recommendations. His background will shape the administration's approach to fiscal policy, trade, and growth.
Rudolph Bauer of South Carolina has been nominated as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to Belize. That role involves managing diplomatic relations, trade agreements, and regional security cooperation with the Central American nation.
Roger Mason of Virginia is nominated to become director of the National Reconnaissance Office, the agency that designs and operates the nation's spy satellites. His leadership will affect intelligence collection and national security.
Eric Hernandez Vaquero of Florida is nominated as an Assistant Secretary of the Air Force, a senior civilian role overseeing acquisition, technology, and logistics for the service.
Sean Costello of Alabama is nominated to be United States Attorney for the Southern District of Alabama, the chief federal prosecutor for that district, responsible for enforcing federal law and representing the United States in civil cases.
Riley Barnes of Texas is nominated to be Director of the Peace Corps, overseeing the agency that sends American volunteers abroad to work on education, health, and community development projects.
Gary Shatswell of Washington is nominated as Assistant Secretary of Veterans Affairs for Information and Technology, a position that will guide the VA's digital transformation and cybersecurity efforts.
Erica Schwartz of Florida has been nominated to lead the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention as Director. She will steer the nation's public health response to disease outbreaks, vaccination programs, and health data initiatives.
Don Richard Berthiaume, Jr. of Virginia, is nominated as Inspector General for the Department of Justice, tasked with overseeing audits, investigations, and ensuring integrity within the DOJ.
Finally, Andrew B. Davis of Texas has been nominated to serve as a United States District Judge for the Western District of Texas, filling the vacancy left by the retirement of Earl Leroy Yeakel III.
All of these nominations will go before the Senate Judiciary or relevant committees for confirmation hearings, where senators will question the nominees on their qualifications, policy views, and any potential conflicts of interest.
Let's not forget the committee meeting scheduled for today, April 22nd, at 2 p.m. UTC. The record simply notes various measures under an unknown committee, so we don't have specifics yet. We'll keep an ear out for any releases that clarify the agenda.
Moving on to the congressional record, the House met on April 21st, and Representative McBride of Delaware highlighted the Hawkinson Colored School, a historic site that played a pivotal role in ending segregation in Delaware schools. She referenced the story of Sarah Bulla and her daughter, whose fight for equal education contributed to the Supreme Court's unanimous decision to end racial discrimination in schools nationwide.
That reminder of civil rights progress underscores how legislative bodies can honor past struggles while shaping future policy. The same day, Representative Sykes of Ohio criticized the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, arguing it gave massive tax breaks to the ultra-wealthy while raising taxes for families earning less than $50,000. She introduced her own Lowering Your Taxes Act and No Tax on Overtime for All Workers Act, aimed at expanding the Earned Income Tax Credit and Child Tax Credit.
Representative Moore of Utah introduced the AI Children's Toy Safety Act, which would ban the manufacturing, sale, and distribution of toys that incorporate AI chatbots. He warned about data privacy risks and the potential for addictive behavior in children, framing the issue as a future societal divide over technology use.
The House also honored Reverend Snow Peabody for 55 years of service with Teen Challenge, an organization that helps people overcome addiction. And Representative Presley of Massachusetts celebrated her district director, Eric White, for his advocacy and historical research that supports her legislative work.
The previous day, April 20th, the House paid tribute to Kevin Brem, a volunteer first responder who died on duty, and to Coach John Franco, a legendary football coach with a 39-year career. They also highlighted a behavioral health pod at UPMC Altoona that has served over 500 patients, recognized National Library Week, and praised the Arkansas Mission of Mercy Dental Clinic, which has treated more than 28,000 patients.
Additional recognitions included Don Schlitz, a celebrated country music songwriter, and former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan on his centennial. The session also noted Groton, Connecticut, as the submarine capital of the world, with the upcoming commissioning of the USS Idaho and ongoing work at the Electric Boat Shipyard.
Those entries give us a snapshot of the human side of Congress, honoring service, health initiatives, and regional industry, all while legislative business continues.
To sum up, we've covered a wide array of bills, from education funding and family-friendly travel accommodations to cybersecurity for agriculture, clean energy dam upgrades, veterans, vehicle adaptations, modernized firearms regulations, telehealth reauthorizations, child safety background checks, lung cancer research, rural health, ethics reforms, and sepsis reduction. We've also walked through a slate of nominations that could shape monetary policy, economic advice, diplomacy, intelligence, defense acquisition, federal prosecution, Peace Corps leadership, veterans, technology, public health, DOJ oversight, and the federal judiciary.
Keep an eye on the Senate's votes on the Keep Public Funds in Public Schools Act, the Cybersecurity Assessment Bill, and the Blind Trust Ethics Bill, as they could have immediate effects on schools, farms, and public trust. Watch the confirmation hearings for Kevin Warsh at the Fed and Erica Schwartz at the CDC. Those appointments will influence monetary policy and public health strategy for years.
And stay tuned for any updates from the April 22nd committee meeting, as various measures could include any of the bills we discussed.
That's all for today's Capital Catch-Up. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into the workings of Congress.
Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.